Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Talk of the Town. I'm James Milan, and I am joined today at the desk by the two Julies, and I will explain further. They are not the latest pop sensation, in fact, though we are here to talk about music, and excellent music at that. So right next to me, Julie Goldberg is here to speak about the Arlington Philharmonic, and her colleague, Julie Belock, is going to be talking about another part of the Arlington Philharmonic Society, and that is the Arlington Belmont Chorale. So we have singers and musicians represented at the desk. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Thanks.
You know, I want to talk, I mentioned to you before we started on air that on Talk of the Town, I like to kind of mix the personal stories of the folks I'm talking with the organizational stories. So let's start with the personal, if you don't mind. And just in your own words, and I'm going to let you guys fight it out who's going to go first. But in your own words, just talk to us about how it is that you have gotten to this place, how long you've been with your respective ensembles, et cetera, what music means to you, that kind of thing.
Okay, go ahead first. I'll go first. Okay, so I'm a flutist. And not a professional one, an amateur flutist. But I've been playing flute, I would say, most of my life. I think I started when I was 8 years old in elementary school. And it's been a wonderful part of my life all the way through. So I guess, to be honest, it's 60 years of flute playing. And I went all the way up from, through high school playing in bands, and then in college I played in a concert band, a symphonic band, and marching band at UMass with my flute. And graduate school, I played in a flute choir. I did all kinds of things, but I'd never really played in an orchestra, and always wanted to. And when I first moved to Boston in 1980, I actually was a singer in the Back Bay Chorale, but wanted to play the flute somewhere. And then I moved to Arlington in 1989, knowing that there was an orchestra in town. But there are a lot of flutists around, and only 2 or 3 chairs or positions in an orchestra. Lots of violins, lots of cellos, but very few woodwind opportunities. But it just so happened that summer there was something called an open rehearsal, so anyone could go. And I went to the open rehearsal, summer of 1989, and lo and behold, there was an empty chair for a flutist. I was just so fortunate. So I joined in 1989. And
was it the Philharmonic at that point?
It was the Arlington Philharmonic Orchestra, right here in town. And I have been with them ever since. And I can't even begin to describe what that organization has meant to me musically, but personally, the people that I've met, and just, it's been kind of a, what do I tell people, a stress reliever. And the phrase, when words fail, music speaks? That's really how I feel about this group, because no matter what's been going on in my life, good or bad, I would go to rehearsal every Wednesday night. If I was exhausted, my husband would say, no, go, you'll be fine once you get there, and he's right. I'm always, it lifts me up. And I was fortunate that when I joined, the conductor, the music director of the orchestra, Walter Pavasaris, had been there since, I think, 1980. And he was terrific, just a wonderful man, and he used to say, play from the heart. I mean, he was just a great guy, and it just was very uplifting just to be there and to be in making music. And now, since it's been 9 years, we have another wonderful conductor, Orlando Sella. And again, I just walk in there, and Orlando is, he's just a spark of joy to everybody, and a wonderful musician and conductor. So it's just a great place. It's my happy place. I guess that's what I would say.
Great.
It's my happy place.
Yeah, we are you mentioned Orlando, and we will talk about him more, but he is a good friend of ACMi's already. We, many of us have worked with him and with the Philharmonic, and we air his series all the time, which is both a combination of excellent music and wonderful education in the process. Again, we'll talk more about that. Before I move over to Julie B, having heard from Julie G initially, I did want to mention that because I neglected to mention in the intro that, of course, the Philharmonic Society is these two entities that are community-focused, community-based, and community membered, basically. That's how things happen. 60 years of playing the flute, you may not be professional, but I'll bet you're pretty darn good. And I'm sure that is a good representation of the general musicianship of a lot of the players and singers. So, Julie, let's hear what your story is, please.
Okay, sure. I have been singing in choirs since grade school, just like Julie has been playing since grade school. High school choir, college choir, and then various places I've lived, I've been in community choirs. Not every so often there'd be a year when I'd take off, but I moved up here, technically in Somerville. I don't live in Arlington, but I live in Somerville, but that's okay.
You're allowed. Yeah, we draw
from the surrounding. So a friend actually pulled me in. A friend of mine who I went to grad school with had preceded me up here and found the Arlington Belmont Chorale and pulled me in. She moved away a few years later, but I've remained since 2002. And it is a great group. One of the things that I think is really amazing is we do a variety of types of music, mostly classical music for most of our concerts, and some fairly challenging, but we're a non-audition group. So that speaks to the conductors who shape us and make us proud of our performances and hopefully please the audience members. But I started in 2002, and that was actually the last year that John Bavicki, who is he a founding? He may not be the founding member of the part of the chorale, but he definitely was a founder of the chamber chorus, which is a smaller group, an audition group drawn from the members of the Arlington Belmont Chorale. But so I was there for his last season. After that, Barry Singer, who had been a director of the small group beforehand, became the director and just retired last year. And then we, for this year, have our new conductor, Stephanie Beatrice. And it's really just been a great ride. Like Julie also said, sometimes you've been working all day and you don't feel like going, you don't feel like dragging yourself there. But once you're there, it's great. Definitely uplifting. The variety of music is great. We do, like I said, mostly classical music, but our June concert has always traditionally been a pops concert. And there are different themes. Sometimes there's Broadway music, sometimes there's swing music, sometimes it's kind of folk rock of the 70s or something like that. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but this year we're celebrating Arlington's 250, so there's themes that go along with that.
Yeah, I'm going to mention it for the first time, but certainly not the last in our conversation, that coming up, yes, on June 13th, we're filming this in the first week of June of 2025, and coming up on June 13th, you will have the concert you were just referring to, and we'll talk about that more for sure. Let me ask you guys just to step back. First of all, thank you for sharing your own journeys to this point. But step back and just talk a little bit about the organizations themselves, the two, it's one large organization, but with these two pieces. Talk about them just in terms of, what is their history like? How do things actually function, given that these are, a community chorale and a community orchestra, respectively? So either one of you should we throw this, Julie, under the bus first?
Okay, I'll go first, at least for the, so we have, is it now 9 concerts a year?
It's 9 concerts regularly, and sometimes there's a 10th if the orchestra does Porch Fest.
An extra one, right.
Or Robbins Farm Park in the summer.
So the orchestra has done Porch Fest?
We have.
So, yeah, so of these concerts, some of them are orchestra only, some of them are chorale only, and then some of them are orchestra and chorale together. And then there's also as I mentioned, the Arlington Belmont Chamber Chorus, which is drawn from the members of the chorale. That small group is an audition group, and there's only about 20 members. The chorale actually rehearses right across the street at the Park Avenue Church, and the chamber chorus, however, rehearses in people's homes. So members who have a piano alternate hosting rehearsals. And
another aspect of really the community-based.
It really is, yeah, like definitely literally inside the homes of the community. And most of our concerts are at the Unitarian Church in Arlington Center, but there is
First Parish, right?
First
Correct.
Parish, right? Is that the one? And but there is one concert in Belmont each year, and that is one of the Chamber Chorus's December concert is in Belmont, and then our Pops concert is at Town Hall.
Okay, so I mean, quite a variety there.
Yep.
And tell me about the history, though, of the Philharmonic or both. Specifically because I'm thinking about how you said, Julie, that you happened upon it in 1989.
Right.
And there were these open auditions. Things had been going on for a while. How long has the Arlington Philharmonic Society and also the orchestra been around?
Okay, the Society has been around since, I was looking, we have a yearbook that we put out every year, and it has the history of the organization right in it. So I was looking in it this morning. Yeah, I was boning up for the interview. We've been around almost, I want to say it's almost 100 years. So 1933 is when the organization got started. It wasn't called Philharmonic Society of Arlington quite yet, but it soon after that it was. And so there was a chorus, there was an orchestra, a Philharmonic orchestra, size. And eventually, by the time, I would say, I don't know exactly, the Second World War came around in the 40s, the organization had been formed as the Philharmonic Society of Arlington. And I can speak mostly about the orchestra and the structure of that. So we're around 60, 65, sometimes 70 players. A good-sized orchestra. We have full string sections and all woodwinds and percussion. And so we've got everything. And we're all community members. And mostly adults. Occasionally we will have a high school student who joins us, an ambitious high school student, or perhaps the son or daughter of somebody in the organization. But that being said, the adults who are there are all different ages. I mean, we have people who are in their 90s who are
really?
Yes, who are playing. Yes, one of our string bass players, Bob Olson, who had in his earlier life played in the BSO, the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
Is that right?
Is a community member, makes his own string basses. I mean, the guy is amazing. And I don't want to say exactly how old he is, but he's in his 90s and he's playing with us.
Well,
and it's fabulous to have him. And then, we have young people who come in, and as Julie said, the orchestra is also a non-audition group. And it might be a little self-selecting if people find out about us, let's say at Town Day or some other way, or they come in and hear a concert and they think, I'd like to play. They can certainly show up, especially in the string sections where it's larger. They can show up and speak to Orlando and speak to the section leaders and sit in on a rehearsal. We have open rehearsals every year. So sometimes they're in June, sometimes they're at the end of the summer, just as the season's beginning. Sometimes it's the first rehearsal in September. So we welcome people to come and try us out. And they don't have to audition. If they can't keep up or they want to take lessons and then try again, they can do that. But it's very welcoming and very open. And we rehearse every Wednesday evening at the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church, right in Arlington Center. And we rehearse from 7:30 to 9:45 on the dot. Orlando's really good about letting us stop when we're
wherever
supposed
you're
to.
at, right?
Wherever
Exactly.
we're at, yeah.
Yeah, that's an important piece of a community ensemble.
It
I
is.
think just acknowledging that most people have had a full work day.
Exactly.
Not to mention, I'm sure Orlando is ready himself by then.
Yeah, well, he's pretty perky, but yeah, I would think so. And we have a break. during the rehearsal so that it's social and we have snacks and people can socialize with one another. And that's been really nice because, as I said, there's people of all ages. There are people in their 20s. And I really like that. You know, when I joined, I was a younger woman, not married yet, and just, you know, loved to chat with some of the older people there who had been there a while. And now I'm one of the seniors and really enjoy meeting people who are younger and doing, you know, different things than I am in my life. So it's a great social group. And the music, as Julie said, we play from the classical repertoire, standard stuff, and also Orlando has been really championing, if that's a word, people, I would say, you know, lesser known composers, local composers, and things that the audience may not have heard before, but he's trying to expose the community. So he'll have a mix in a program. So something that people would recognize, a Mozart piece or, you know, something like that from the standard repertoire. And then he might put in something that's a little bit more modern or new. And
right, that's the only way you can really do these things, right? I mean, you have to give the people what they want, in a sense, or what they think they want.
Right.
And then also kind of nudge them into some new territory, if possible.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I was going to jump in with the membership. We usually open ourselves to new members in the beginning of the season in September at our first concert, but also the first rehearsal after a concert. So we have a concert in December and then we reconvene in January, and there's often new members and we have them stand up and introduce themselves at the break. So even for this current June concert, we had new members come after our early May concert.
Oh, wow.
It included 2 new members who both of them were sons of existing sopranos who we had in the group. So that was kind of nice. I mean, they're not high school students, they're young adults, but we do run the gamut of all ages and abilities, and maybe more so than to be in the orchestra, you at least have to know how to play an instrument. In the chorus, you just have to,
you just have to show up. You have to show up.
We do read music, but it's reading music skills vary a lot. I mean, we rehearse things. We sometimes practice using recordings at home, so people can who do it more through listening can also get caught up. But again, I've always thought that a community orchestra or chorus, especially one that's not audition, it really takes a special kind of conductor.
I was gonna. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Somebody who can balance. You know, we're not taking it for a class in music school. You can't be too much of a work a day. You can't say we're going to stay an hour late till everybody learns this. On the other hand, people want to be good and they want to be proud of their performance and they want to learn from what they're doing. And so we've been so lucky to have, for 20 years, we had Barry doing that, and then we've had Stephanie, who had a very successful first season this year. And you know, we couldn't be happier with the atmosphere in the room and the final performances that we end up giving.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I want to thank you for just kind of bringing up the role of the leaders of these ensembles, because it is so crucial. I mentioned to you guys before, I sing in a community, in a multi-generational community chorus, which it runs from 3 years old to somebody in their 70s, and it is remarkable the energy that it takes from the conductor, from the music director, to just meet everybody where they are and then find that balance you were talking about, which frankly we work on all the time here at ACMi, that balance between inviting people in and giving them that experience and having them learn through the experience, and then balancing that with really wanting the highest quality that we can achieve. It's a tough needle to thread a lot of the time.
It is.
And I'm sure that Orlando and Stephanie and their predecessors are doing, have done a great job, because you guys, your ensembles are in very good health, it seems like.
Absolutely. I have to piggyback onto what Julie said. Orlando has been able to stretch us. That's the word I think of, because some concerts, some music, I've talked to some of the string players, or I've looked at the music, how are we going to be able to do this? Somehow we do it. He works his magic and his professionalism and you know, his confidence in us, and you know, it works, and we're able to stretch, and we're able to do stuff that I wouldn't have imagined that we could do.
Which is so wonderful, right?
It is.
To have, again, I mean, I don't want to impugn you guys with my own age and time, but you know, at my age, I'll just say, it's wonderful to feel like I'm being stretched around something. And I think that it's very good for our neuroplasticity and, you know, of our brains, and it's also just good for our spirits a lot of the time, especially, again, when you're doing it in an ensemble. So talk a little bit, I mean, I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about the concerts, but for just a couple of minutes, talk about your own experience and the experience that you see in a way that hopefully the audience can, you know, get a sense of what it is like to work in an ensemble, to work with other community members who at first you don't know at all. And you say that, you both said that there's some coming and going with each season of players to some degree, maybe more so with the chorus than with the orchestra. But talk about that experience a little bit from your own perspectives.
Okay, well, there is a lot of history in this group. There are people who've been in the group for 20, 30, 40 years.
I know somebody who's been in there for 23 anyway.
Yeah, that's right. There's a core. And then that helps bring the new people kind of into the fold. People are very welcoming. Well, of course, you've got a million different personalities like you do when you have more than one person in a room. Right. But one of the ways that people are kind of folded in there are so many ways to get involved, from the very basic to who's going to sign up to bring snacks for our break time, to stepping up to who wants to be the kind of in charge of attendance or whatever at the chorus, to then becoming responsible for something that's a little more crucial to the operation of the group, like becoming a board member. And that is the way that I got involved. I kind of happily went through the first couple of years just showing up, sitting in the back row, the alto section like you do, showing up for my concerts. But then I was asked, someone approached me and asked me if I would be the chair of the choir, of the chorale, which you make announcements and you do whatever. So I did that. And then from there I got asked, someone again asked me to do something. It's hard to say no when somebody asks you face to face. It's one thing to say, sign up on this list, but and now I'm a board member along with Julie G. And so it's been a way to get more involved. Even running the Pops concert, there's a lot of activities that go on and people get involved, and that's how you get to know someone. Oh, here's two of us sitting at this table selling snacks. We never met before, but now we're going to talk to each other for the half hour that we're doing this, and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity to get involved beyond just the singing. And then the singing, at least singing itself, and of course the working with the orchestra. To me, I mean, if you love choral singing, then you know that feeling when the group gels and you hit a high note. There's nothing finer. That happens almost weekly for us. So I think it's a great way to, you know, speak to a part of yourself that's not necessarily your job and not necessarily your day-to-day household chores or whatever it is you have to do, your commute. You know, it's something to kind of get you past that.
And do you want to say something?
I'll just add something. It's true what Julie said about volunteering, and that's a great way. You know, Town Day, people have different shifts. We have something I want to mention called the Young Artist Competition every spring, and Adam Dixon, who is in the orchestra, president of the orchestra, and Larry Carella organized that along with Orlando. And volunteers from the two groups sit at the church while these wonderful young competitors come in and audition for the competition. And so we get to meet the young artists who come in, but we also meet each other throughout the day if we're volunteering on shifts. And same with Town Day. And there are other opportunities to get to know people on a volunteer basis, so that's true. But what I want to say about the orchestra and musically is, yes, we have a social hour, we can chat with people, we volunteer and so on. But I think the connection people have said to me, oh, do you play your flute at home, when the orchestra's not, over the summer? And I basically say, not really, because to me, I'll fess up. But to me, it's about the connection. So, I'm sitting in the woodwind section, the flute section, but I know what's going on in the brass sections, because when you're playing an orchestral piece, you have to be aware of who's playing counter to you, and what are the strings doing, what's
the relationship,
the relationship. So there's a connectedness, and really that's what Orlando is instilling in us and inspiring in us, to listen to everyone so that we can really make music together. So even if you don't know someone personally, you know what their music is like, and you know how they play, and you know how you have to connect with them. So there's just a musical, kind of spiritual connection with other musicians, even if you don't know their names.
I love that. I love that idea that you are communing in the music.
That's what's so great, that's what lifts you up.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and everything else that you have with us. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I've been speaking with Julie Goldberg and Julie Belock. Together, they are important members of the Arlington Philharmonic Society. I will just say that's the umbrella group that encompasses the chorale and the orchestra. We appreciate the Julies being here to join us and tell us about this. We also appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. I'm James Milan. We'll see you next time.
ACMi productions are only made possible with your support. Visit patreon.com/ACMi to learn how you can help.